Hello and welcome to the sessions on municipal taxation. Our objectives of these sessions and the videos are to go over our current tax system and then look into how our current tax money goes and what it funds. And then finally, we're looking for feedback from you, the residents, through an online survey. So this is very similar to what we're doing with our workshops around the county. And if you're interested in attending one of those, please contact our municipal office and we'll set you up with the dates. So as mentioned, we're going to look at the current tax system, including our assessments, and then Wendy will look at the tax rates. We'll then move into the services provided by our property taxes, and then finally we'll do a summary or a feedback. So when we're looking at our current tax system, it's important to realize that there's two parts to the formula. We have our assessed value, and then we have our general and area rates. Both of these you need a general understanding of before you can understand your tax bill. So first we'll look at the assessed values. Property Valuation Services, or PVSC, is responsible for the assessments of all 54 municipal units in Nova Scotia. They are an external body to the municipality, and therefore they're an independent body which provides us the assessment values for all residents, which we can then apply to on your tax bills. So in this presentation, we'll go over some general understanding of your notice of assessment, which every property receives in January of each year. We have the top portion, which gives property details. The middle values are the key part to this portion. And then finally, the appeal form. The values in the appeal process we'll go through in more detail in a following slide. The second page, which is actually found on the back side of your notice of assessment, includes dates, historical information, and contact information. The dates we'll go through with an example in a further slide. The history of assessment is provided based off of the property. So although the property may change hands and you may be a new homeowner, that historical information will remain there for you to view and to find on the back page. And then that historical information, if you have questions, you can contact PVSC on the information on the bottom. Again, this is external to the municipal unit, so if you contact us, we will just be forwarding you to the related contact information which you would find on the back of the notice of assessment. So we'll look a little bit more in detail to a couple of those items. You have your appeal form. The key to your appeal form is the date. You'll find that there, which says that you must appeal by a date given. And here, for last year, it was February 14th, 2013. So if you have any questions or concerns about your notice of assessment, your values, or information contained within, you should contact PVSC before that date. The assessment process itself. As noted on the back page of the assessment notice, is two dates, the base date and the state date. So we'll go through and give an example of how they're applicable to your assessment. The base date itself is the date of valuation. So if you're looking at market values and how your subdivision or how other properties have gone up or down and you think your assessment should follow that, you'd be looking at the valuation as at a certain date and time. So for the 2014 roll, the valuation in the market reflections is up to January 1st, 2012. The state date is different. It's bringing into the actual physical state of the property. So any additions, deletions, or demolitions to the property, anything that would change that physical state would be up to the stated state date. So for the 2014 roll, you see that the state date is December 1st, 2013. Now we'll move into why you would see two valuations or two assessment values on your notice of assessment. You have your assessed value, which is the market value, and then a capped assessed value, 160, or in this case, 170,000. Your taxable assessed value, so the amount that we include on your tax bill, is the lower of the capped or the assessed value. In many of the cases, you'll notice that it would be the capped. So since this is an area where we received a lot of questions on, we'll go into a little bit more detail. The capped assessment program itself came into existence in 2005. This is through provincial legislation, and therefore it's out of the municipal hands as to whether we keep it or remove it. The cap basically sets a percentage to which any given property or residential property can increase in a given year to the Nova Scotia Consumer Price Index. So for example, if in this year you have a value, then the next year, although the market may go up by 10%, if the assessed value is only 1%, the increase is capped at that 1%. So we'll go through an example because it is quite complex. Here we have John and Mary Doe who lived in their house for 25 years. Since it's a residential property, they would fall under the capped program. We're looking at 2008 here as the beginning, and since we noted that 2005 was the beginning of the cap program, they're starting off with a differential. So we have your assessed value in 2008 of $150 and a cap value of $135,000. So the tax amount on your tax bill would be the $135,000. If they sell their house to their son Joe in June 15th, 2008, Joe's 2009 assessment notice values would be applicable here. And sorry, this would be their son. So the previous owner's sons, they would still fall under the cap program. That's because Joe, being their son, would not have an arm's length transaction. So they would still have a market value reflected. They would also have a capped assessed value. So that increase would be the increase of the Nova Scotia Consumer Price Index in that given year. Then Joe, the son, sells the house 2 years later, and he sells it to Bob Smith, who he has no relation to. The house sold for $170,000, and since Bob is not related in any way to Joe, he would then, or that property would then come out of the cap program. So his 2012 notice of assessment would reflect a market value based on those dates which we noticed on this back page of your notice of assessment. So the valuation date or the base date would reflect here on the market value. Here you see that he's not under the cap program because he received or just bought the house, and the amount that we would tax on their tax bill would be based off of the $165,000. So then we go into the next year, and he receives his 2013 assessment notice. Since this is still a residential property, you would see that although the market increased by 5%, so he has a higher market value or assessed value, he would still be then capped at the Nova Scotia Consumer Price Index amount, inflationary amount. So the amount that his capped assessment is, $167,475, would be the amount that we would tax on. So that's an example of the cap system and some key highlights to your notice of assessment. Again, any questions or concerns should be raised to Property Valuation Services Corporation. The contact information is listed here as well as on our website. And if you have any questions or concerns, please contact them. We'll now move on to the second part of the calculation, that being the general and area rates. So we have the assessed value times applicable rates will give you what you're paying. So to do this, I will get Wendy Salzman, our Revenue and Budget Officer, to come up and present the next portion of our presentation.
Thank you, Kim. Now that we've looked at the assessment of your property, let's see how assessment relates to your tax bill. Your tax bill is based on the assessed value of your property times the general tax rate and any area tax rates for your specific community. Each year, PVSC provides a municipality with an assessment roll of all properties located within Kings County. The description, location, and classification of the property is determined by PVSC. Each year, Municipal Council sets the residential, resource, and commercial tax rates. The residential tax rate for 2013 was 85.3 cents per $100 of assessment. The commercial tax rate, $2.287 per $100 of assessment. Resource tax, 85.3 cents. Forest land, 25 cents per acre. farmland is exempt, and recreation land $27.59 per acre. This slide shows Kings County tax rates as compared to other municipalities and towns. You can see Kings County general tax rate, that is the 85.3 cents, is below the tax rates of our neighboring units. Kings County tax rate with area rates is comparable with other municipal units, but it's also less than our neighboring towns. The municipality invoices property taxes twice a year. So you receive your first bill in May. It's an interim bill, and it's based on 50% of your previous year's taxes. In September, you'll receive your final tax bill, and it's based on the assessed value of your property times the applicable area rates and tax rates, less the interim installment that was billed in May. So this presentation was prepared for a public meeting in District 9. So we will review 3 different tax bills for 3 properties within that district. So the first property is a property that is located within the village of Cornwallis Square. So what does the tax bill look like for that property? This is a sample tax bill. It gives you the name and address, the description and location as provided by PVSC, and then the details of the property. So we'll take a closer look at the details of the property tax bill. So the first is, this is a residential property, so it's the residential assessment, $150,000 times the tax rate. Waterville, Cambridge, Grafton fire rate. This includes all properties located within the village of Cornwallis Square. Next is a recreation rate. This includes all properties as well that are located within the village of Cornwallis Square boundary. The next item is the sidewalk rate, and this includes all properties within the community boundaries of Cambridge and Waterville. All 3 of these rates, the fire rate, the recreation rate, and the sidewalk rate, the municipality collects on behalf of the village of Cornwallis Square. The next item is municipal sewer. This is a rate that's set by council each year. It's based on the amount required to cover municipal expenditures for the sewer system. So any property that fronts on a street that's serviced by sewer pays the annual sewer charge. Next is the street light. This rate is also set by municipal council. All properties with a dwelling or commercial property that fronts on a street that's serviced by a street light would pay a street light charge. So the second property that we'll take a look at is a commercial property which is located in Cambridge. It's a commercial property, so therefore different tax rates would be applicable. So this is a sample tax bill of the commercial property in Cambridge. It's much like the first one, with all the information shown on the tax bill and information that's received from PVSC. So we'll take a look at the details. The details, again, much like the first bill that we looked at, commercial property, the assessment times the commercial tax rate, and so this is a different rate than your residential tax rate. The next 3 items, this property is located within the village of Cornwallis Square. Therefore, the 3 items, 3 area rates as shown on the previous bill are also applicable here. This property is not, there's no sewer service provided to this property, no street lights in the area, so these rates are not applicable. This map shows the next property we're going to look at, and it's a property located in Colebrook, and it is a residential property. So the tax bill, again, same format, same information, and we'll skip forward to the details on that tax bill. This is a residential property, $150,000 times the residential tax rate. The next item is shown is the Kentville fire rate. This includes all properties within the 911 boundary for the Kentville fire. The municipality has a contracted service with the Kentville Fire Department, and we collect fire rate for all properties within their district. The next item is the Colebrook recreation rate. The municipality collects a recreation rate on behalf of Colebrook Recreation Commission. Each year, public meeting is held, and residents in the area have the opportunity to vote on the area rate. Last is the sewer rate. This property is serviced by sewer, therefore the sewer rate is applicable as this property fronts on a street serviced by sewer. So we've looked at tax bills in 3 different areas within District 9. As you can see, in addition to the municipal tax rates, area rates are based on the location of the property within a service area. The current tax system is based on your assessed value of the property times the tax rates. So the next question is there any other possible forms of taxation? This slide identifies 3 of these possible taxation methods available that the municipality currently does not use. The first one is the development charges. This is a form of user fee that's charged to developers for future development. The capacity to provide today for tomorrow's growth. And this fee is levied on new development. The Municipality of East Hants currently has development charges in place. So for example, if you built a new home in East Hants, development charge may be charged at $6,000 development fee. So the second possible form of taxation would be deed transfer tax. So the deed transfer tax is collected on the sale of every property that is transferred by deed. The municipality would set the rate of the deed transfer tax and the rate not to exceed 1.5% of the value of the property transferred. So the Municipality of East Hants also charges deed transfer tax. So if we were to look at the previous example that Kim gave on if Bob Smith bought the house from Joe Doe, and this property was within the Municipality of East Hants, then Joe Doe would pay $2,550 to the Municipality of East Hants for a deed transfer tax. And the third possible form of taxation would be different tax rates, such as urban, suburban, or rural rates, which reflects the services available to the residents within a specific geographical area. And this system is used by the Halifax Regional Municipality. So these are 3 possible forms of taxation that we have identified. If you would like to see any of all of these introduced, or if you would like to see more area rates or additional user fees, please provide your feedback in the online survey. So we reviewed the current tax system based on the assessment of your property times the tax rate, as well as identified some other possible forms of taxation. So the next step is to find out what services are paid for by your municipal taxes. So I'll now turn it back over to Kim, and she will take us through this next part.
So now we'll move on to where your property taxes go. As mentioned, you have your different general rates and area rates. When we're looking at this pie, we're just looking at the revenue generated from your general area rates. As those other specific tax rates, such as street lights, recreation rates, go directly to those third parties, this is the revenue which the Municipality of Kings receives and then disperses internally. The largest portion of the pie is the province. So 35% of the amount that we receive on the general tax rate goes directly to the province. The second largest would be the RCMP at 17%. All these pieces of the pie will go into in more detail in further slides. So I'll skip right on to the provincial portion. In all these slides, you'll notice that the pie that we're looking at will be highlighted, so you can get an understanding of exactly where we're at and how big of a dollar amount we're talking about. So again, education and provincial portion makes up a large piece of the pie. Education with 85% of the amount that we pay to the province. The items under the provincial portion are all demanded or regulated that the municipality collects, and then we pay back directly to the province. Therefore, our council does not have any impact on the line-by-line budgets for education, library, corrections, public housing, or specific roads that the province owns. However, we do have to collect it and then remit it to the province. some specific facts on provincial payments. I won't go into line-by-line details on these, but if you want more information, please contact us. The one that I will go into a little bit of detail is education, as that makes up the largest portion of the provincial payments. For that, we pay based off of the student counts that residents or students live in Kings County that go to Annapolis Valley Regional School Board. So currently we have just over 6,600 students, and with us paying over $10.4 million, that equates to an average of $1,564 per student. So to put this in context of how it relates to our budget process and how we can get feedback from the residents, unfortunately, because this provincial payment is mandated and council does not have any impact, we can't change the amount of teachers, the amount of classrooms which are provided to the students or the residents. Therefore, if you have questions or concerns with that, that is still a provincial item. Okay, the next pieces of the pie are RCMP and Valley Waste. So RCMP makes up 17% and Valley Waste makes up 11%. Valley Waste Resource Management is an authority which is brought together by all the different municipal units in the region. So that includes towns such as Berwick, Wolfville, Kentville, Hantsport, and Annapolis Royal, as well as the County of Annapolis. The annual cost to the municipality is $3.8 million, and the average annual cost per household then equates to $163. The services that you see is the garbage pickup on a weekly basis, as well as the distribution centers that Valley Waste Resource Management operates. For this item, we do have the ability to look at the operations and the services provided. So if residents required or asked for additional services, we could work with our partners, the towns and the county, to come up with a budget or to submit a budget which will reflect those services. However, we do not have unilateral rights to increase a particular service. RCMP. RCMP we pay based off of per officer costs. So here in Kings County we have 45 officers serving our 47,569 residents. That equates to one officer for every 1,000 residents, approximately, with an annual cost of just over $6.2 million. The officer per resident ratio is one which the RCMP used to compare us to other counties or other areas if we should have additional officers or if we're at a good service level. It's just one item which is used during the budget presentation process. So for comparative purposes, we have the 1 officers for every 1,000 residents. Lunenburg County would be comparable at 1 officer per every 1,026. Halifax is 1 officer for every 964. Those being comparable. However, there's other units such as Kentville which would have a much higher rate per officer, and they currently have 1 officer for every 358 residents. I want to move on to the next item of the pie, and that's our fire departments. Our fire departments in Kings County operate under a volunteer system. We have 2 parts of funding, being area rates and general property tax. These, for the most part, fall under capital and operating. So if it's a capital item, oftentimes we use the area rates, and then if it's operational, such as training, repairs, and maintenance, it would fall under the general tax rate. And the 13 fire departments would fall under these payments. Currently, we paid just over $2.4 million from a general tax rate for those operating items. The next piece of the pie is related to our grants. I'm going to highlight some of the grants that we give here at Kings County, and if you'd like more information, please contact the different service areas for more detail or whether there's an application process. The first category being recreation and social programs. It's important to note that recreation utilizes many facets to provide our programs, such as villages, towns, and most especially volunteers. So we utilize them through our grant process. Our staff here help administer, gain knowledge, and promote and support those organizations which are out in the community. We then pay our pro rata share based off of the amount of residents that attend that were from Kings County. So this includes funding for parks, for trails, indoor facilities, and halls. And a good example of the indoor facilities, which may not necessarily be in Kings County, but yet we fund, would be those such as the Kings Mutual Center in Berwick or the Soccer Dome in Kentville. Community health and well-being, we fund approximately $200,000. The largest of that would be for Valley Regional Hospital, which is the Hospice Our Community, Our Health campaign. Transportation related of $600,000 includes Kings Transit, Kings Point-to-Point Transit, Trans-County Transportation Society, and school crossing guards. These items, especially Kings Transit, Point-to-Point, and Trans-County, we work with committees and other municipal units to provide transit systems within Kings County. Economic development of $500,000 includes items such as the Municipal Economic Development Fund. That's an application process with 2 deadlines each year. And if you have an event or a capital improvement, which is economic in relation, or will build or generate economic funds, you can apply to that program. Youth travel assistance, Grand Prairie UNESCO site, Visitor Information Center, Kings Ren, which is the Regional Economic Network, which is not up and running yet, but we have a budget set aside for it, and Farm to School. Low income property tax reduction at $200,000 is another example of a grant, and this is for households which make up to $30,000 a year, can apply for this reduction of $160 to be applied to their tax bill on an annual basis. So the application must be made each year, and the $160 would be seen on the September tax bill. The next portion of the pie is our other services. So here we see services that we provide to the residents with our internal staff at the municipality. This includes engineering and public works, who oversee a lot of our capital and infrastructure, such as our local roads and sidewalks. We have building and development services, who deal with all the building and development items in Kings County, all the way from the building permit stage to your inspection to potentially dangerous and unsightly. Recreation are those staff that I identified earlier who are out there supporting our community, our volunteers, and the other programs that we offer. Planning is primarily related to land use planning. And right now, if you haven't already, please visit our website, www.kings2050.ca. Our Kings 2050 initiative is a high priority, and there's a lot of information on there regarding our land use planning and the initiative in general. I'm going to go over a couple other key facts regarding land and sidewalks, or roads and sidewalks, sorry. We have 21.6 kilometers of roads that the municipality owns in the County of Kings. All the others would not be municipality owned. Primarily, they are owned by the province. The cost per year is $26,800 per kilometer, and a large portion of that is related to snow removal. Municipal sidewalks, we currently own 14.1 kilometers, and again, we have a cost per year just to maintain and to remove the snow on those sidewalks. One of the key items for our sidewalks is our sidewalk priority list, which is generated each year. If you have a sidewalk in your community that you would like to see put onto the priority list, which is then formed to generate our capital improvements, so if you would like to see a new sidewalk, our engineering and public works will evaluate that submission and put it onto the priority list based off of a set criteria. And finally, we're looking at admin expenses. So this is our corporate overhead. One item to note that the Property Valuation Service Corporation payment of $800,000 a year is included in this admin expenses. Although that's an external party, we do need the assessment information to feed into our revenue and collection ability. So we also see finance and revenue services here, and that includes the collection from the tax bill, payment of vendors, payment for payroll, as well as reporting abilities and reporting requirements to the province and to other government agencies. The State Council is at the top here. They form our priorities, our strategic vision, as well as the policies and procedures which we follow and we administer throughout the county. We have HR, information, admin that are also in admin services, and then finally our municipal building. This final pie will round out our presentation on where your money is spent. This is that same pie that you saw before. It's the same funds, but just shown in a different way. So here, what we look at is discretionary versus non-discretionary costs. When we're looking at the budget process, or which services we can increase, decrease, or change, it's important to realize and reflect on which ones we can change, or how do we go about making the changes. So the first one, largest piece, again, would be the province. As stated, we do not have ability to change or influence the number of teachers, the number of students, the classroom sizes, etc. So therefore, we don't have an impact in that we will be paying that money and we'll have to collect it. The semi-discretionary legislation or contract is 35%. Those are amounts which we have some control over. So for the Valley Waste, we would then work with our partners to make a change. For our RCMP officers, we have one cost per officer. So we may not be able to determine whether there's a new car or additional training, but we can decide whether we would like to see an additional officer or not. Then finally, we have our discretionary with operations and services, so our internal staff and internal budgets such as training, supplies, as well as grants that we give out, most primarily being our recreation and fire. So that is another way to look at that pie. We'll now move into a recap. This is your tax bill, which you will see in May and September of each year. This being the final one, will show the separation of all the different rates that are applicable. PVSC, as Wendy mentioned, determines the property classifications as well as the assessed values that you find. So again, please make a note of your notice of assessment that you would have received by January and have questions and appeal forms filled out by that due date, because when you receive your tax bill in September, it's too late at that point to appeal your assessed value. Your detail can be found in the middle, and hopefully you have a better understanding of exactly where they come from. Your residential, that general tax rate is approved by council, and then you have your area or specific groups or funds following. And then in that previous tax bill, we saw a total of $1,900 being paid. Here is just a different way to look at that $1,900. So for an average resident property, which is $150,000, that $1,900 would be split as follows. You'd have provincial payments of $448, RCMP $218, Valley Waste $141, fire grants $90, and so on. The items under this line would represent the area rates. So your sewer, your recreation, your fire capital, sidewalk, and street lights. Thank you very much for watching this video, and now the most important part in your interactive session will begin. Please go to the link that's found on our website or that you can see below and fill out the form or survey. It's approximately 10 minutes, but we'll provide valuable detail on what services you would like to see increased and the feedback on how we did for presentation. Thank you very much.